All righty, Brandice, we are live on Facebook tonight, and I'm so excited to have you. This is Crystal Oliver, and I am your new favorite financial coach, and I'm on tonight with my sister, Brandice Daniel, and we are coaching you to financial freedom. So we're excited about our conversation tonight, and we're talking about Brandice's one of her favorite topics, which is cliff jumping. So let me introduce her. I already said she's my sister. So Brandice Daniel, she is the CEO of Harlem's Fashion Row, and she has so many times cliff jumped, and I have been I have been able to watch her do it on so many occasions. So I asked her tonight if she would jump on. There's a lot of people right now that's in transition and that's making changes. I read an article the other day that said 40% of Americans are considering making some type of change in their career, which will definitely affect them financially. And so that's one of the reasons why we're having this conversation. It's not just about finances, but it's about things or moves that you might want to make that will affect your finances. So I'm asking Brandice a few questions on tonight. So thank you, Brandice, for jumping
First of all, I'm so honored to be here with you, Crystal, my little sister, with Budget Me Black. So excited about it. And I have to say, so inspired too by your financial journey that you've had over the years. You are the one person that I trust with my company's finances. And Crystal works with me on Harlem's Fashion Row and our finances. So I'm of course super honored to be here.
Yay, I'm so excited. So I'm going to jump right in because I know we don't have a whole lot of time. But I want to talk about, I have some questions from some friends. I've texted people say, okay, what questions do you have for tonight? So we have a lot of really good questions. But one of the questions that was asked is said, what ultimately made you cliff jump? So tell us a little bit about your story.
What made me cliff jump, I'll say I've taken many of them. So then I would have to ask what cliff jump, right? But
Which
I will
one?
say one of the things I did was I moved to New York. And that was definitely probably one of my first really big, huge cliff jumps. But then as I'm saying this, I'm thinking about the fact that I also moved back to Memphis from Atlanta. And I also want to consider that a cliff jump because at the time when I was living in Atlanta, I knew that I wanted to work in fashion and I knew what I wanted to do, but I didn't have a clear pathway to get there. And so it was taking a chance to say, I'm going to move back home in the house with my mom and dad in my old room that I grew up in so that I could pursue my goals. And so often we think about cliff jumping as like going up, when in this case, for me, it was taking like a step back and saying, I'm willing to take this step back in order to pursue what I wanted to do. And, people were offering me jobs. It wasn't like I had no opportunities, but they were offering me jobs in areas and in industries that I wasn't really interested in pursuing. So the cliff jump was really deciding that, nope, I'm going to go in this direction, which is towards fashion. And I'm willing to take the sacrifice or make the sacrifice in order to do that. And so I don't know why I was really led to talk about that cliff jump over everything else, but moving to New York was another cliff jump. And that was because life is short. And I always knew that I wanted to live in New York. Well, for a long time, I knew that. And I wanted to work in fashion. And if you want to work in an industry, I believe that you should move to where the best is. Like, how am I going to be doing fashion in Memphis? I mean, you can. Right. But if you want to work in tech, move to Silicon Valley. Like if you want to work in movies, move to LA. Like be willing to move to where the best are operating if you want to operate like with the best.
That's so good. That's so good. We had another question about mentors and mentorship. And so did you have a mentor? Did you have a mentor in Memphis or did I know that you had some mentors in Atlanta at the time or in New York. And so who were those people that encouraged you, that poured into you during your times or any time that you cliff jumped?
Sometimes I had people who poured into me and sometimes I didn't. And I think that's the thing with cliff jumping. There are going to be sometimes when I moved to New York, my mother was my biggest cheerleader saying, go, go, go. You can come back if you need to.
Right.
Right. When I was getting ready to move, I talked about that move from Atlanta to Memphis. That was nobody. Nobody was saying, yeah, that's a great move, Brandice. Move back to Memphis in the home with your mom. People were saying just the opposite. They were saying, what in the world are you doing? When I, left my job in 2011, no one was saying, yeah, quit your job. That was a decision that I made on my own. When I started my company, Harlem's Fashion Row, and decided to really act on that idea, I had a lot of people in my corner. So you're going to have some cliff jumps that you're going to have to do by yourself. And then there's going to be some where, you have a lot of people who are supporting you in it.
Good. So you have to just take the step, and whatever it looks like, and whoever is with you, they're with you or they're not.
Yeah. And I always have to say this because I want people to know too, a lot of my decision comes from prayer. My faith is a big piece of who I am. And so I'm not making decisions just like I'm just going, and it's not all the time that I've heard that God said clearly yes either. But it's that if I don't clearly hear no, I'm like, all right, we're going to go. Okay.
We're going.
Right. If I don't clearly, my barometer is I didn't clearly hear no. And too, like when the answer is no. So that's a big piece of when I cliff jump. It's definitely centered around my faith.
That's good. That's good. What about, you talked about stepping out on faith and when you actually quit your job. And so we're not telling everybody that your cliff jump is quitting your job. Your cliff jump could be, whatever it is that God is calling you to in this season, right? And so how do you, in terms financially, when people start, you start thinking about financially, when you started a business, that was one of your cliff jumps, is starting your business and quitting your job. And so how do you maintain financially, and how have you done that over the years, and keep from saying, you know what, I'll just go back to my whatever plan B, because you are the queen of plan A, right? You like, there is no plan B. I am plan A is where I'm going. And so how do you keep from like falling back on, what you're used to, or seeking some sort of stability if you feel like this is the season to do business, or you're called to entrepreneurship?
So first of all, cliff jump is not some term for quitting your job. Okay. Cliff jump is about moving forward on an idea. That's it. All right. So I want to clarify that, because as soon as I say cliff jump, people think, let me go quit my job. No, don't go quit your job. And when you think about cliff jumping, right? When you cliff jump, nobody's going to go and jump off a cliff if there are no witnesses, if they don't know how to swim, if they're not, fully prepared to take that jump. They're not going to jump off that cliff with, a pile of important papers in a backpack on their back. They're not going to jump off a cliff with a kid hanging off of their legs, right? Like, think about it seriously. So there's preparation that people go through, even to say, all right, I'm about to cliff jump. We were in a country and I wanted to cliff jump, but I didn't have the things to, like, I didn't have on the right attire. I had on so I couldn't go. And so you have to make sure that you are prepared. What does preparation look like? You need to know, like, what's your revenue plan for whatever this is that you're going to do, right? Have you actually made sure that you've developed the skills that you need to be able to do that thing properly? A lot of times people want to jump into things and they suck. So you're trying to do something and you're horrible at it. And you're out here trying to figure out why it ain't working. Go get some training. Right. So, right. And here's the thing. I have done the same thing. I jumped out at something and I sucked at it still. So what I have learned is you got to invest in yourself to make sure that that thing, that idea you're stepping out on, that you are actually prepared, ready. You've made sure that you're valuable in that area, that you can add value to people. And that takes a while, quite honestly. You don't want to go out here and make a really rash decision if you've got kids involved. So you want to be sure that you're set up. And since we're talking quitting our jobs, when I quit my job, I didn't have any kids. I didn't have a husband. All I had was myself. My rent was $700 a month. And I figured, worst come to worst, I can go work at the Payless, or go sell bagels on the corner and make my $700 a month rent. So for me, the risk wasn't that great. Like, it wasn't that big of a risk. Yes, I went from making almost six figures to living off of about 20-something thousand dollars a year, but I was willing to make that sacrifice. It meant that I couldn't go out of town, that I couldn't go shopping, that I couldn't do the things that my friends did, that I had to say no to a whole lot of things. But for me, that was worth it. I couldn't live the same lifestyle and then, also not have a salary coming in every month. When you talk about what happens, I think you asked what happens when doubt creeps up. Is that what you said? Yeah. Doubt is gonna come. It's literally a part of it, right? So the best thing anyone can have is your belief. Your belief is more powerful than money. Your belief is more powerful than anything. And so how do you get to a place that you keep your belief system in check and in order? Because that's what we're fighting against, right? That doubt comes in and is coming against our belief. And one of the things that I do is I speak it, I write it. And when I say I speak it, I speak whatever it is I see for myself, right? Before I speak it, I see it, I have a witness. So I tell someone that this is what I'm about to do. This is my goal. This is what I'm going to hit. And the other thing that I do is I learn. So I am constantly listening to books, taking courses, making sure that I'm listening to people who are teaching me. And I also listen to people who will make me think bigger, right? So I remember I set a goal for my nonprofit. I'm going to raise $10 million. And then I spoke to somebody and she was like, 10 million, that's all? You don't want to at least 20? And then I thought, she's right. You know what? 50. No, 100. But we're going to start with 50. Why? Because you need people in your life who will go, you only want to make $1,000 a day? That's it? Like, right. You need people in your life who will push you in that way. And sometimes it's a physical person, and sometimes it's just listening to something. I love Jim Rohn. He's somebody I listen to all the time. He's fantastic. I highly suggest listening to his YouTubes and books.
What's one of your, since we're talking about books, what's one of your favorite books that you've read recently that has been, a motivation for you, or, just a huge like learning experience for you? So what's one of the most recent books that you've read?
Relentless. Okay. It is by the person who, he was a trainer for Michael Jordan and for Kobe Bryant and a lot of other athletes. I love that book. Okay.
Good book. And so what about, I know I have a question here that is about negotiating. And so when you jump out, especially if you are jumping out to be an entrepreneur, or if you're switching careers and trying to negotiate your income, what tools have you used in the past to get the most based on what you feel like you were worth?
Yeah. So this is where you got to know the value you bring. This is all about understanding your value. You have to know. There are certain situations I get in where I'm like, I kind of know what I'm doing. And then there are other situations where I get in where I'm like, oh, I know what I'm doing. Right. So when you're in those situations where you're the second one, like, oh, I know what I'm doing and I know I can add value to you. I think you should have your number. Like, this is what my number is, but then try to get their number and ask them, what's your best number? I try to negotiate by asking people what their number is before I come in with my ask, right? And then once they tell me the number, if it's higher, which sometimes it is, I go, well, let me think about that and see if that works for us. Because you never want to go, yeah, that works. Because then they're going to feel like, oh my goodness, I should have asked for more, right? Or I could have gone down. But if their number is lower than what you think you deserve, then I would reiterate the value that you're going to bring to them. And I'll say, look, here is what I would normally charge for this, right? This is my normal fee. However, I understand that your budget might be limited, and I understand that I haven't proved yet to you the value that I can bring. Why don't I come into this for 3 months and then go like a little bit over what they said they're comfortable spending? Why don't I come in this for 3 months, prove my value, and then we relook at the rate? Right. And then that person still might not be able to afford your rate. But if you're bringing in incredible value, you can get up to your rate over time. And at some point, once you've been doing this for a long time, you just come in with your rate. Right. So, but when you're first starting out and you don't have a proven track record, you kind of have to meet people where they are sometimes. And truly, you might be working with clients who truly can't afford it. Like there have been times when I've wanted to pay somebody something, I just couldn't afford it. So at that point, you may just have to find different types of clients, right? Because you might be reaching out to clients who can't afford your fee. So, but there are clients in the world who can. So you have to then go to the people who can't afford it.
Yeah, I think that's a huge challenge for a lot of anyone who's doing some type of independent contract work, or they're just always trying to figure out what's the right pricing, because you don't want to price yourself too low and people think, well, what am I getting for that price? They're afraid of the price, and you don't want to go too high either. So sometimes that's just always a challenge. And
well,
so that's one of the things.
One of the things you can do is you should know what your revenue goal is for the year. So what's your revenue goal for the year? You got to take into account the fact that you got to pay taxes. You need to take into the fact that you don't want to be a one woman or one man show, that you want to pay somebody to do this. You need to take into account that you need to probably hire an attorney, like, factor all of those things in and go, what do I want to make per year? Okay, great. Now, how long, like what's my investment in time for one client? So if your investment in time, if you can like handle one client really, really well, 1 day a week, all right, great. That means that you can't take any more than 5 clients, because if it takes you 1 day to really operate well, then you got to look at your time and go, okay, I can do five clients if they're going to take me 1 day a week to just work on that client. All right, so now based on what my revenue goal is and the fact that I can only take in 5 clients, how much do I need to be bringing in per client? That's one way to do it. A lot of times we have no strategy when it comes to pricing. We have no strategy when it comes to what money we want to bring in and what profit we want to bring in. And we also thinking about in terms of what money we want to bring in terms of what we want to make, forgetting the fact that we need to hire somebody, because a one-woman show a one-man show will never be attractive to big businesses ever. Right. Like you're going to keep operating on a very small level if you're trying to do this by yourself. So you got to take into account, you got to hire somebody. You need to hire somebody early. You need to have an accountant. You got to pay taxes. You need to have an attorney to do basic stuff. And then you might want to bring in like an intern. So you need to take all and operate like a company and not like what I want to get paid.
Right. I think, a lot of times we do not really sit down because, when you're just starting out, you don't really think about all those things that you just said. And that's something I know that you've learned over the years, the things that you need, especially preparing for taxes and hiring additional staff so that you can scale, so that you can provide, bigger services and opportunities even for others, and be able to kind of be prepared for those larger clients that you work with. And so what if you had to say some of the things that you've learned in terms of budgeting and financially being financially prepared or planning properly? What are some of the things that you've learned, like top things that you've learned as a business owner? And I don't know if I'm asking that correctly, but
yep.
What financial advice, maybe top 2 things that you've learned over the last years of being an entrepreneur?
3 things. Get a bookkeeper, hire a bookkeeper, hire a tax accountant, and hire a financial planner.
Perfect. Simple as that.
Simple as that.
Simple as that.
Simple
All
as that.
right, so I'm so grateful that you jumped on with me. I know we could probably go on and talk about this conversation for hours. I have so many questions. I probably received like 30 questions, but we only have time for a few.
We'll do another one. We'll do part 2.
We'll do a part 2. I'm excited about it. So we'll do it again. But thank you so much. And y'all have a good night. Thank you, Brandice. Brandice, how can people find out more information about cliff jumping? Or do you have a course that you're providing around cliff jumping?
Yeah, I'm working on something now, but they can go to my website, brandicedaniel.com, and download. There's like a free cliff jump workbook there. They can download that to start, and then that will get them on my list so that I can keep them posted when I have something coming up.
Okay, perfect. And y'all already know, if you need me and you need some help with your budgeting, your savings, your debt reduction, you can always call me or reach me at budgetmeblack.com. Thank you so much for all the many questions that were sent in. And thank you again, Brandice, for being so gracious to give us your time tonight. All righty.
I love you, Crystal. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.